Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the opportunity to sit down and chat with amazing humans about their journeys with mental health. For this episode, I'm so happy to introduce Davina Thakur to the conversation. Welcome, Davina.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me today.
You're more than welcome. It's lovely to see you. As always, just a quick introduction from me, and then I'll let you do the full proper introduction, Davina, of who you are and what you do. So Davina and I have met through social media. Seems to be a common recurring theme for a lot of these, but through LinkedIn in particular. There's common connections. There's people that are sort of giving us a connection together to say, oh, you need to talk to each other. So, hey, here we go. We're on this session now. So this is the first time that we've met virtually. And it's lovely just to have sort of a pre-chat where we were just having a bit of a laugh about everything. And we're going to go into some of those conversations about mental health, of course, during this discussion. But Davina, it's lovely to meet you at last. It's been a little while.
I know.
But go ahead and introduce yourself properly.
Thank you so much, Matt. It's been so lovely to chat to you. Hi everyone, I'm Davina. So I wanted to talk about my mental health journey today, and Matt is very kindly giving me that platform to do so. I work in finance and have done for the last 9 years, and for a couple of companies, and that sort of feeds into some of my story as well. I have become a mental health first aider as well, and a huge sort of mental health advocate following my own experiences with my mental health. So I can sort of start from the beginning. So for me, I really started paying attention to my mental health in my previous job. So I was training to be a chartered accountant in one of the large accountancy firms. And I was going through a pretty difficult time, just generally feeling I felt very lost in my career and didn't really know what was like happening in life. Now, on reflection, I feel I was probably a bit depressed. Right. But at the time and this was only 5-6 years ago, and I didn't really know what depression properly meant then. Yeah. So I went through this stage of just feeling very lost. I wasn't having the best time at work. I was sort of being treated not particularly well by a particular manager, and that was I think causing some of the conflicts and the upset I was feeling. So sort of out of nowhere, went on a lovely holiday with my then partner, came back, and out of nowhere had a full mental breakdown. And, for me, that represents itself in being horrendous anxiety. So my condition that I've sort of been diagnosed with is an anxiety-based mental health condition. Yep. For me, I just didn't know what was going on, what was happening to me. I couldn't eat. I was crying all the time. I'd be at my desk at work and I was like falling asleep because I wasn't sleeping. And I just remember my stomach constantly churning and like my brain going at 100 miles an hour. And I was just breaking down all the time. I knew I needed to go see a GP, or I just knew that something wasn't right. And luckily for me, I'm quite a generally quite outgoing person. So I do talk about things. And I know a lot of people that sort of suffer with their mental health really struggle with that. But for me, I was like, I just need to talk to somebody. So at the time I reached out to my manager, who was in my previous team, who I was on secondment at the time, so it wasn't my manager. And I had a lot of trust and respect for him. So we met up for a coffee really sort of quickly, and I just cried in the coffee shop. And he was so supportive. I sort of remember it very vividly. And he said, like, this is what you need to do. You need time away from work. You need to go to a GP. You need to not be contacted by anybody or anything to do with work. And actually, I will sort all of that out for you. So I did go to a GP, and they prescribed me with some medication and sort of antidepressants, mainly for anxiety. And I had 2 weeks off work, signed off sick. Now, for me, I was like, why do I want 2 weeks off work by myself when I just have to think about the way I'm feeling all day, every day? But it was like the best thing. Like, I just needed it. It gave me the space. I was really skeptical about medication because prior to this, I've been somebody that doesn't really like taking medication for things. Yep. And I remember the first day I was taking the tablet. I mean, it took me time to even start taking it, but as I wasn't starting to feel better, I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a chance, because that's how desperate I felt. And then I remember the first night I took the tablet, and these particular tablets can take up to a month to work, and they tell you you'll feel worse before you get better, which is exactly what you want to hear when you're feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, encouraging.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember taking it the first night, and then being anxious and awake the whole night, and waking up in the morning and saying to my partner at the time, oh, these tablets are making me feel worse. I can't take them. Like, I can't take them anymore. I've tried it and it's not working. And that just shows how much I was struggling to understand what was going on. But I persevered with the medication, and it helped, and the time off helped. And, we then moved house, and like I had some positive things to look forward to. And I was just very aware. I sort of got better, stayed on the medication for a while, got a new job. So that was great, and sort of moved on for a sort of couple of years. And then that was sort of it. Like, I think for me, for that point, I was like, great, like I feel like me again, and this is fine. And it was that awful situation, which is why I felt that way. And then I sort of worked to sort of slowly come off the medication, sort of in guidance with the GP. It was sort of really minimal basically a placebo dose anyway, but sort of knowing that it's there felt like it was doing something for me. And then we moved house and bought a house, and I had a whole nother episode breakdown where I don't know if it was this. I think I've come to the conclusion that whenever I have a flare up with anxiety, as I call it, or a big meltdown or breakdown, it's driven by a situation. So there's a trigger for when it gets that bad. And when I moved house, it's probably about 4 years ago now, and I was feeling fine, never felt anxious, wasn't taking any medication. And literally the moment we moved, I fell apart, and I got so unwell so quickly. So the same stuff, no sleep, really anxious, not being able to eat, to the point where like I get very weak very quickly because I haven't eaten and I'm not sleeping.
Yeah.
Brain's going in overdrive. And then like basic tasks, I can't do basic tasks. Like I can't empty a dishwasher, or, can't drive and things like that. So again, I went back to the GP, and, I said to myself, well, maybe, I don't think I ever thought that big change would impact me, because you're so caught up in the change. So then after that, I was like, right, I'm going to actually stick to my medication, and I'm just going to keep it going for a little longer. Because for me, the first time around, I was very much focused on being like, right, when can I come off it? Because I didn't need it. And so, whereas now I'm just like, it's fine. Like, it works for me, and it takes off some of the edge of how I feel, and I'm really open-minded to it. So it sort of like took me a few weeks to recover from that situation. And, I noticed I had quite paranoid behavior at times. Like, I was convinced the guy that was living next door to me was a serial killer that wanted to kill me. And some of these sort of things. And I get really sort of irritable, and I, tap my hands a lot on the table at work and things like that. So it's quite noticeable, some of the sort of physical. And so sort of all good, get better. And then sort of the end of 2019 was my real big experience with mental health. So my partner and I at the time, we sadly split up very suddenly, and that had a massive impact on both our mental well-being, but particularly, from my perspective, was my most challenging experience to date. Like, my life changed overnight, and I didn't understand why, and I got pretty unwell very quickly. So again, went to the GP and I just remember crying in the room and telling her what happened, and she was so lovely and so supportive. And I was just like, you just need to help me, you just need to help me, because I don't want to live, basically. Now, I wasn't a suicide risk, and And I, I had, like we were talking about, I had amazing support from friends and family, which I think is a really key thing in, being able to cope with mental health struggles. So we sort of split up in a really difficult way. And sort of my life just fell apart, like, is how it felt for me. I just felt like there was no point me even living. So I tried to get help from sort of local mental health services, sort of through the NHS and stuff. And, I'm a massive, fan of our NHS and advocate for all the hard work they do. But I was told, I remember receiving a letter from whatever the local service was basically assessed me and assessed that I wasn't ill enough to get support, which for me was like, I felt really ill.
Yeah.
And I needed, I just needed to not talk to somebody that was friends or family. Like, I was talking to my friends anyway, but I needed professional help. Like I needed to know how I was going to cope, because I couldn't see myself ever getting through the situation. Fortunately I have a private medical cover with my work, and they extended all our policies to include mental health cover.
Oh, good.
So I went to see a therapist. Originally, I went with myself and my ex-partner. At the time, we sort of went to therapy together. And, we both, it didn't really work out how we wanted it to be. So I continued seeing the therapist by myself. And I just wasn't, it just didn't feel like I was getting what I needed from the therapy. I needed to know how to cope. And I needed like tools. And I wasn't getting that. So I started looking for another therapist, and straight away I had sort of one conversation with this gentleman, and I knew that he was the person that I wanted to see. And that was a year and a half ago. Wow. And I've probably had 40 hours of counselling, maybe more, maybe nearly 50 hours of counselling. So straight away I started seeing him at a stage where I was very unwell.
Yeah.
And I was having sessions weekly, and I'd have them on a Monday. And by the time it got to Sunday, I was desperate to get back in on a Monday.
Right.
And they always went in two ways. So there was either I went in and I would burst into tears the minute I sat in the chair, or I went in and I was like, I'm fine, I don't want to talk today. But it changed my life. And that's sort of why I talk about my mental health, and specifically like talk therapy or seeing a therapist, because I never saw how I would ever get over that situation or move forward. And you sort of, everybody's telling you time or this, and I'm just like, I don't want to live. That's simple as it is. Like, my life is over. And it was those therapy sessions that like did it for me. So going weekly, and I went weekly for probably 4 to 5 months. It changed my life. Not only did it give me an opportunity to just sort of speak, it's been a very collaborative process. So he challenges me, he gives me tools, he picks up on specific things I talk about and how I need to like focus on myself.
Yeah.
And it actually meant that by going to therapy, the relationships I had with my family and my friends were even better, because I was dealing with that in therapy. So it almost felt like I didn't ever need to talk about it outside of that.
Okay. Yeah.
I believe that everyone should have therapy. I know, and like the sad thing is that it is free for, I was very fortunate to be able to have access to that, but I would have been able to afford that.
Right. Yeah.
And I have since continued, and I'm self-fund, and now I go, I was going sort of, pandemic hit, and then we did a couple of Zoom sessions, but they weren't really for me. So I got to the point where like I'd been going before the pandemic, and then that hit, and then I was sort of really worried, how am I going to cope? And lots of people were worried about me. And actually it gave me the space that I needed to recover, because the world was put on stop basically.
Yep.
So I didn't feel social pressure to have to, see friends or go to things that I wasn't comfortable to go to. I just needed time to like heal and go through my emotion, grieve. That's exactly what it was. Like I basically went through a whole grieving process, like not only, grieving a relationship that had ended, but basically a life that I like, a future that was no longer the same future.
Yep.
So yeah, so sort of fast forward, last sort of summer, I set up Mind If I Share, which is my charitable organisation, currently Instagram, but we have a website coming. And the main motivation for me doing that was like, look at me, like I didn't want to live, and you know, I thought about ending my life, and well, now I spent the last 4 months investing in myself and talking, and like I feel like a different person. I was surprised. People have been surprised at how quickly I've sort of recovered. It's very much a journey, as you know, and a process.
Oh yes.
To sort of stop and, you know, and that's it. So my main motivation was like, I want to tell people about my story, and I want people to feel that they can talk openly, because so many people within my colleagues, friends, family were suffering and have been suffering with a mental health issue. And just by me talking to all of those, I know within my own network, oh, if I spoke to these 5 people who spoke to another 5, like the ripple effect we were just talking about. So that motivated me to set that up. And like the fundraising I'm planning to do will go towards paying for therapy for people that can't necessarily access it on the NHS or don't have private medical. Because for me, what sticks in my head is you're not ill enough to access this. And I feel like that is if somebody got that at the point that they were there unwell, that could end their life. So that's sort of my journey overall. I'm still going to therapy. You know, I've moved house again since then. And, you know, I've had a couple of flare-ups where I felt, you know, things have got on top of me, or I felt really overwhelmed, and I'm seeing some things come back in with the anxiety. Like, I'm very aware. And I think that's one of the key things, is like knowing when you need to step back or you need to say no to something and then just focus on yourself. So I'm very aware of that. And then I still work with my therapist on that, and he's super open and honest with me on like areas that I need to work on. And I've experienced some burnout and some sort of brain fog lately, which has come as a bit of a surprise to me, because I just thought everything's fine again. So sort of just when you feel like you're almost getting it, it makes sure it reminds you that it's there.
Yeah, it does, 100%.
So no, I think there's real power in just, you know, having the conversation and realizing it, and letting people know that there are multiple places that you can get help, not just necessarily, you know, our National Health Service, which is massively overwhelmed anyway. There's so many charities, people like you, people like me doing things in this space. So that's sort of my story, and I'm always happy to be contacted by people or share. And, you know, it's been something that's taken me time. I've always wanted to talk about it. As I've got better, I feel more comfortable too. At the time, it was like the worst thing that ever happened to me, and all I felt that was everybody was just looking at me. But no, I feel in a good place, and I'm sure, you know, there's more challenges will be thrown my way at some stage. But I feel like from going to therapy, I have the tools to be able to, I feel better equipped to be able to tackle those problems, which is, you know, half the battle.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And it's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that, and for being so open, and you know, exploring all those thoughts, those experiences you've been through. You've been through a lot, and you've come through, and you're working on it, and that's important. And having those tools and those resources available, that's something that I'm talking about a lot with people at the moment, especially now, more than ever, I think. And I don't know how you feel about now in terms of sort of the mental health challenges that we have in society. But, you know, you said it, the NHS are overwhelmed. You know, there isn't enough services to support the demands, and that means that it comes back to the streets in some way, doesn't it, to us to try and look after ourselves better. Fascinating sort of insights from you on those. Sort of in terms of the COVID moment then, so I've heard this a few times actually, where it's the pause point has actually been useful. So what did you do? Like, how were you working during that in terms of?
I think there was things in my social calendar or life that I was really dreading. For example, so my partner and I were engaged at the time and planning a wedding, so that was very distressing for me. So I had weddings coming up that I was like, I can't go through this. So for the world to have to stop, I just focused on, I put all my energy into working, because I was still working throughout, and just enjoying small things. Like I would just, sit in my garden and read a book all day, and because we couldn't do a million other things that you would usually do.
Yeah.
And I just found real comfort in that, and happiness in it. And and now I'm really, as things have started to open up, I'm really mindful of getting myself back to that every now and then.
Yeah.
And getting back to the weekend plans where you're back to back all the time. I'm very mindful of being like, keep some of those positives from that lockdown in my life.
Yeah, there's always that risk, isn't there, of it goes back to the sort of the pre-COVID stuff,
Yeah,
the bit in the middle, and then we're trying to make up for lost time. And I don't think we should be making up for any lost time. I think we should just accept, some of those things with lessons learned, right?
Absolutely.
We revalued certain things, relationships, family, communities, and now we need to make sure we continue some of those. And it is going to be hard because there's a lot of pent up sort of frustration, demand, and as soon as we unleash the shackles, who knows where we're going to head to, but fingers crossed it doesn't go to a dangerous space again, and we don't end up back in any lockdowns.
I know.
Incredible. So I want to go into a bit more around this Mind If I Share, because I'm really interested in your thoughts around that, in firstly, how did you get to the point of thinking, I should set this up? What was the driving or motivating factor?
Yeah, I wanted to do something for a while. So since I've sort of had my own experiences, I have been quite open on my own personal social media, and so I share things every now and then. I would sort of share something. And I actually remember when I left my first proper job, I used my sort of, people typically leave and they send an email out to the whole business. I used that opportunity to talk about my struggles with mental health, and that I came off work. And I just remember the responses I got were phenomenal. I had emails coming back and forth being like, I didn't know because you're so bubbly, and and that was basically the point. The point was that I am bubbly and I'm chatty, but it doesn't mean I'm not, I could be hiding it, but it impacts everybody. It's not just people who are quiet. It's so different to who I am as a person. And that was my point to make. And I had loads of people reach out to me. And then when I went into my next job, I've just straight away, I was just open from day one about it. And then we've done sort of a lot of work around getting mental health first aiders in place and stuff like that. So when I think in lockdown, I just thought, I'm just going to do this. I can do it off social media. It's quite, it's not easy. I'm not a social media expert at all. Finance is my thing, but the way I did it, I set it up on Instagram, was that it would just be posts of videos of people just talking about their mental health, to basically showcase that there's no preference of age, gender, occupation, can affect any one of us and every one of us. So and then I've got big plans, and these things take time, and
So what are you looking forward to though with it? What do you want to? Where do you want?
I want to get to a point where I can fund sessions for people, hold sessions. I am not a therapist or a mental health professional by any means, but we're a group of people that talk about experiences, and sometimes I'm a believer that that's even more powerful and useful than professional help at times. So I would like to, in a non-COVID world, when we can put on actual physical sessions, but also focus on well-being in general. So, get fitness into that, get nutrition into that, get, sleep experts into it, and look at the whole picture of a better mental well-being and physical well-being. Because for me, one of my best ways of sort of challenging stress or anxiety is through exercise. That's sort of my go-to. And sort of without that, I feel unbalanced. So if I have a week where I've not gone to something, I don't feel quite right. So I think it's sort of knowing the things that you need. And so now I'm very sort of particular about that's in my diary, and I'm going because I know that by not going, it's going to really impact me.
It's interesting. I this thing around sort of your routine, your personalized routine, because it has to be personal to you as well. And for anybody listening, it is important, don't just think, exercise means I've got to do what you do, or it really is about you finding your own groove with that, isn't it? And so give me three things that you would do to take care of your mental health now that you've learned is really important.
So 100% exercise.
Yep.
I'll pick up the phone to somebody, somebody I know. I've got a couple of really good really, really close friends that I know will always make me feel better when I feel that way, that I'll reach.
Okay.
So they're you know, I would definitely just pick up the phone and say, I'm feeling like this. I just need you to listen.
Yep.
Just be there. And then my third thing would be I do keep journals as well. So like on a day I'm feeling, you know, not feeling great, I'll sort of make notes and then I'll reflect back on it on a day that I am feeling great. Or I might record a video where I'm feeling very emotional, just for my own purpose.
Yep.
And on a day where I feel great, I sort of humble myself by also just, hey, you felt like that a week ago, but now you feel like this. Like it's okay. So that when I do feel bad again, it was a reminder of, you felt bad, but a week later you felt okay. So it's going to pass, like it will pass. So yeah, that's sort of like, I mean, I could give you loads more things, but like you said, it's everybody's got to find their own, what works for them.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it sounds like you've got some really good ones on there in terms of, you know, the big solid ones, which are really helpful in that moment. How often do you sacrifice those though? How often do you sacrifice those for other things?
Well, now that everything's opened up and where everybody wants to eat out and have a drink, the exercise element is being challenged.
Oh, okay.
But I'm trying to fit it into this. So for example, today I got up early and I went in the morning and trained.
Brilliant.
To you know, the evening, which is what my usual preference is.
Yeah.
I'm still very much, you know, the friends thing is still really, really key for me. The journaling has stopped actually, so that's something I need to pick up again.
Mm-hmm.
I was keeping a journal after every therapy session I went to, because I like to see my progress.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you're right, like it's just being mindful and being like,
you know, it is, isn't it? And it's too easy to give up the good stuff. And, you know, that's why if we recognize what really helps us and then we start stopping, does that even make sense? We stop doing them.
Yeah.
Then maybe we should already know that there's, you know, the pathway isn't the positive pathway in the end, is it? Exactly. Of course, it's nice to see friends, and as long as you're replacing them with one that's similar or better than, I think then we're doing all right, aren't we? But it's about
Yeah. Sorry, one thing I find really useful that I learned years ago was I like to have weekends where I have no plans booked in, because I like to get up and then go with how I feel. Whereas I always, I've got friends that sort of back to back every weekend, you have to book 6 months in advance to even be able to see them.
Yeah.
So I find that quite stressful and anxiety inducing. So what I do is, this is a weekend where I'm going to have nothing. And if I wake up and I want to see somebody and they're available, great. And if they're not, I'll enjoy my book in the garden.
Yeah.
But I don't like that feeling, because I think if you wake up and you don't feel great, then there's the pressure of letting somebody down, is what I have. So, but like, you know, sort of my friends are quite supportive of that, and they sort of know that's how I like to. Yeah.
There's no harm in having those empty weekends.
Yeah.
You know, I thinking back pre-COVID, and you know, we used to have every weekend was fully booked, and it would be quite stressful, because then you'd be I've got to go to work on Monday, and it's again back into that sort of that hamster wheel of life a little bit, isn't it? You know, every day is a work day in effect, or something to do. Day. And some days it's nice to have those down. Awareness. So we've got a last few minutes as well. Of course, you know, you've been through experiences, you've grown your awareness, you recognize when things are, you know, starting to sort of wobble a bit maybe, or when things are starting to feel a little bit more heavier and a struggle. Do you naturally turn to support from others when those things are happening? Are you able to sort of normalize that?
Yeah, I think so. I think since I've been having therapy, I actually feel more equipped to deal with a lot of it myself.
Okay, brilliant.
Than I probably would have been before, because I'm so aware of it. Like you said, I've got that awareness. I know what I need to do, and then I'm very sort of, oh, this is what's happening. Right, what are my tools? What's going to make me feel better? Oh, I don't want to eat, but I know I need to eat, because if I don't, I get very weak. And then, so I sort of have a process that sort of kicks in when I'm in that stage. But at the same time, I'm very able to pick up the phone and say to somebody close to me that I just need your help right now.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah.
And I would hope that people feel the same way, that they could do that with me. So
well, you know, from everything you say, it sounds like you've pretty much normalized this conversation. You know, it's okay to talk about it, isn't it? It really is. And that's the message we're trying to send out through this podcast as well, is that we're just chatting about mental health here, right? Nothing more, nothing less. Although it is, in some opinions, is a massive thing, but it really it's part of who we are, and we all have it, don't we? We can't avoid it. We just need to learn to listen to it and help it. So we are coming last few moments, so I'm going to throw it over to you for your words of wisdom, your thoughts, anything you want to share as the sort of final thoughts of this recording. But just for me to you to say thank you, Davina. It's been absolutely amazing to listen to.
Thank you so much, Matt. What you're doing is absolutely incredible, and sort of really admire that. Words of wisdom, I would just say, don't give up on yourself, don't give up on life. It will get better. Things do pass. Yeah. There's so much help and support out there, and you're not alone. So it's just about, in that moment where you might feel it is you cannot go on, just persevere, because it is pretty nice on the other side. So yeah. Takes time, and there's so much help. So people like us.
There certainly is, and absolutely people like us. So if anybody does want to get in touch with you, Davina, then they're more than welcome to, I hope.
Yes, of course.
Me, of course, but never give up hope. That's the most important part of all of these conversations is, we're trying to shine a light on mental health. That means it's okay to talk about it. We've been through experiences, we've been through difficult moments in our lives, but know that there is always something that we can do to improve that situation. Never give up that hope. If anybody is listening still who is struggling, no, you're not on your own. Please know you're not on your own. There's always people out there to contact, and there are many resources available for you to access today. Samaritans, of course, exists for exactly that reason. If you wanted to talk to somebody in confidence just about some struggles or things that you're worried about, feel free to pick up the phone. The number's 116123. If you don't like phoning, you can always text to shout 85258, but know there is always somebody there who cares, who does want to listen and does want to support you and help you. So that's it. We're done, Davina. It's been amazing. I knew it would be, of course. Why wouldn't it be? And it's been great. I wish you all the very best with everything. Good luck with Mind If I Share, and good luck with everything that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you.
You're welcome. No worries.